Yeah. All good.
Lovely. Giselle, were you saying, I think we know each other, or we've been in the room together with each other?
Yeah, you presented a few weeks back.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now
Okay,
I
nice.
remember
Yeah.
you. Yes, it's coming back now.
Nice
Yes,
to see you
very
again.
good. Nice
All
to
right.
see you again. Make sure I
How
don't
are
mention
you?
names
How-
when I do my sharing.
Yeah.
I won't
I'll,
say, well, PwC. No, I'm kidding. But I have to say, though, you have a very stubborn partner. And I'm not too pleased with
We
him.
do.
Yes, Charles,
Yeah.
very stubborn.
Yeah,
Very
okay.
stubborn. That was
I'll
not
fight
the
back.
sequence, right? That was not, it was your show. And he stole it for no reason. That was a dumb move, by the way. Feed that back to him. That was a very stupid move. Okay? It was your show. It was your show. And he made the wrong call. I'm not going to help you guys anymore. Okay? End of story.
Okay. All right.
If there's anything I do not like, it will be disobedience.
Okay.
Yeah, disobedience doesn't sit well with. Hey, Nanda, right?
Hi, Joel.
Yeah.
You are putting him on the wrong footing to start off.
No, Andy is great. I just felt bad for him. I just felt really bad for him. He had it was supposed to be a 2-hour presentation. Some idiot decided to make it into a 30 minutes data presentation. Oh God, what was he thinking?
Hi, Eddie. Nice meeting you. This is Nanda here. I had met Joel and Keith earlier yesterday, but hi to you.
Awesome. Nice to meet you too. I haven't pitched to you, unlike Giselle, so we're okay. We can start fresh.
Oh no. Well, listen, thanks so much for joining, guys, everyone. So what we have is a few things. We have 3 of you presenting, which is going to be awesome. I'm really glad to be able to meet you, Andy, and I hope to introduce you to Nanda here as well. Nanda's with E&Y, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves together. I will make, but during the actual class itself, I'll take you through. So first, introductions. Nanda reminded me to make sure everyone knows who they're in the room with first yesterday. So go ahead, Nanda.
So, well, my name is Nanda, partner with EY. I run SAP supply chain for Asia Pacific and Japan. I'm based out of Singapore. So primarily, the product is SAP. I've been doing this for donkey years now, and across all industries, but CPG would be my sweet spot. So that's in a nutshell what I do for a living, Andy.
Cool. Nice. Do you want me to go next?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Nice to meet you, Giselle, and I've met briefly, but I'm interested in her background too. But I'm relatively new into the consulting world. I run PwC's Advanced Analytics Consulting. So I've been doing that for about 2 years. I'm the managing director. So we have about 30 odd data and analytics consultants based here in Singapore, and I run that team. That's across everything from architecture to modeling to strategy to visualization, implementations, which is what we talk about with Giselle, etc. So the full gambit. But my background is more in the kind of advanced analytics space. So prior to this, I was the head of analytics at Uber. So ran the regional analytics function, all the data science for a number of years until that was eaten by Grab. So that's kind of how I fit in. And I did my bachelor in information systems. So I'm hoping I could be a little bit relevant to this group today. But let's see. But a bit of a different path. I'll go into more on my background for the students, I guess, to help contextualize.
For sure. And Winston Nesfield, a dear friend from 30 years, talked very highly about you, Andy, as well.
Well, I don't know if I'll live up to that, but okay.
And Joelle, your introduction beyond
So,
Eating up poor
Oh,
Andy.
be very brief. So my background is in finance. So I'm an accountant by training, spent a lot of time in the US and Europe. I just came back 4 years ago. So now I've done ERP for 26 years now, but I kind of decided to be done with it. And I do a lot of independent advisory, more on the strategy level for some clients. And of course, I work with Keith in our executive education program over at School of Computing ACE, Advanced Computing for Executive, basically teaching executive all about emerging tech, fintech, data analytics, and of course, all about transformation leadership and all. Good to see you guys. Yes.
Cool.
That's it. And I'm very blessed to work with Joelle every day. Every day.
No, I'm pretty direct. I don't sugarcoat. That's my flaw and my gift as well. It's a strength. It's a feature, not a flaw.
That's right.
It's by design.
I've been on the receiving end of it. Fine.
Oh no, it wasn't targeted at you. It was at Charles.
Oh, it's all good.
No, he's not good. Okay, so what's the plan, Keith? You want
minutes?
Yeah.
Maximum 10 minutes because we're on a web conference and they're students. So ideally shorter, and you're going to get to share more later. So shorter's better, and hit your key points. I'll open it up to questions right away after each one of your presentations. So first person will go. I'll give the students one, maybe two questions. Second person will go, and third, and then we'll have like a panel type discussion with everyone as well. Feel free. I know I can't hold you back, so I might as well let down the guardrails now. Go ahead. Someone's asking Andy a question. You guys can all jump in and
let it rip.
Go ahead. And,
this is gonna be fun.
No dramas.
On a Tuesday afternoon, I'm like ready.
I have good news for you. So we're going to do this I'll record this session, and then I'll chop it down into something like 5 minutes long, because we don't have any James Bond car chases in this. So it'll be interesting for about that amount, but I'll try to pick the key pieces out. The other thing that we are doing is streaming it live on YouTube. So just, I don't know if anyone's going to watch. I did broadcast it.
That's okay, Keith. You are doing your part. It's broadcasted.
Yeah.
Exactly. You are visible to more than 1 billion people, but how many will look up is a different story. So that's the story. Yeah, I'll let you go from here. Your presentations, you guys will run, so you know how to share. I'll let you take it from there and what have you, and we'll manage Maria's here. By the way, I need to introduce Maria. Maria works very closely with me in the FinTech lab, and you'll see her always communicating too, and she's behind the scenes, making sure to admit students when we need to let them in at 2, and then to put people on mute and things like that as necessary. So if you have any questions or something coming up, you can put it there in to her. I think also, Andy, it'd be good if you could join our WhatsApp chat. Can I get your?
Yep. Do you want to just type it in the chat here? Is that easier for you?
That's even better. Yes, please. And then I'll add you to our WhatsApp. So if anything is burning, then we can certainly just hit each other.
There you go. So just a question for me in terms of the students. Are they graduating this half, and are they undergraduate? Well, just kind of leveling.
Yeah, sure. So they're 4th year students, which means they're in their honors year. They are typically, going to graduate this semester. Some graduate next.
Yep.
We have a few exchange students, and they'll be, they may probably be joining from overseas because they were all sent to Norway and Sweden back to where they were. And there's, yeah, that's it. There right now, what I've taught them this semester is the consulting methodology. There, by the way, there is a book on consulting, and it takes you through
should read it.
Proposals all the way through. I also teach them the principles of the $1 Million Consulting, which is a fantastic book, by the way. It's very short, but $1 Million Proposal, it's called. And then we take them through looking at banking transformation. So I had them look at the whole banking industry and see what's right, what's wrong. And then they had to provide proposals with business benefits. They also taught Lean Canvas so that they could propose, you know, what could be on there for a client easily or show internally. I also teach them negotiation ethics. They won at negotiation, they failed at ethics. So, but that's cool. And, I in a three-party negotiation, and during that negotiation, the consultants, of which there were about 12 consultants in different groups, they were conflicted. They were working for the buyer and the seller, and none of them highlighted that issue. So I had to lecture them about that, but they felt it, you know. And then the buyers and sellers both felt bad. Hey, how could you be consulting me? You know. So I like to make the class as touchable and practical as possible. So those are the key things. And I'm really glad that they get to, it's the end of the semester now. This is their last class actually, and then they do presentations. They've actually are working with companies. Each group of 3 is working with a company in Singapore or somewhere in the world. They've proposed to them, they've worked on a project, they're monetizing, they're doing value realization. And you know, so they've gone through the whole process of consulting from pitch to deliver. And then they're supposed to, after class, if they care, follow up with the client and see what the presentation was like. So they're going to be looking to hear from you. What's it like to be a real consultant? You know, what's the process of doing a proposal, because they're students, so they think there's a very specific process. And then also finally, they will probably ask about what, you know, jobs prospects are like now as well, because they're graduating.
Sure. Okay. Great context. Thank you for that. I probably should have dialed in yesterday to get that context. So I appreciate the additional.
No, it's okay. It's good. Okay. So anything, we have a few minutes left, 6 minutes. Can I just let you all test sharing your slides real quick to make sure I see them right? And
So you want me to go first?
sure, Joelle, by the way, Joelle is first in presenting.
So, can you see my screen?
Yes, sure. Okay, now I see the full presentation.
Okay, that's good.
Looks good.
All right. Stop share, over to somebody else.
Nanda?
I'm not going to do slides. I was just going to talk.
Okay, that's fine.
So all good. You have to look at my ugly mug while we go.
Okay.
So share screen. You able to see the screen?
Yes.
Something like this.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
All good.
Exciting. And I will poke you guys at 8 minutes. So that just keep an eye on that so that you can wrap up. I won't, not publicly, of course, behind on your chat. So, all right. So otherwise, this is, we're all set. So we can just sit back, relax. You guys can talk about your run-ins with each other, because apparently as well, which is pretty neat. And yep.
Yeah. Oh, good. How are you guys doing at the moment? Is everything okay given current scenario and whatnot?
So it's a different way of working, Andy. It's a new way of working, I feel. And we are all, it's like in Singapore, both our clients, us per se, we all keeping up to that. And it's no different. It's just about we are remotely working. We are using technology to our advantage, but on the core of it, still we are delivering the same stuff.
Yeah, I find it's generally okay if you have a bit of an existing relationship with the client, or you're kind of already through a piece of work and they trust you and they know kind of what you're trying to do. I find it's more difficult when you're kind of just starting something or trying to kind of pitch into it next. And I mean, sometimes it's just a lot of value of being able to kind of sit in front of someone, or particularly when it's a technical thing, right? People just want to see that you exist and can help out, both the tech side and the management side. So it's interesting. It's definitely going to be a weird period, I think, for all of us.
I'll just hop out for a minute and reconvene back in about 4 minutes.
No worries.
So Andy, where are you from?
Back on mute. I was born in New Zealand, grew up in Australia, and then have been in the region about 10 years. I think Singapore for a while and Philippines for a little while before that. So yeah. How about yourself?
New Yorker, and have been here for 7 years.
Okay.
Just in Singapore.
Do you know Winston from the US?
Straight from the US to here.
Yeah, okay. Nice.
The only other place I've been tempted to live in Asia would be Tokyo.
Yeah.
I do like that.
How's your Japanese?
Well, I'm trying to practice as well, but
yeah, so I'm told.
You may want to get water or anything as well, just to be ready. We have a few more people coming online. So I'm just going to display my picture for now. Not my picture, the picture of the session. And then we will hop in right at 2 o'clock. Hey everyone, we're just going to take a moment to get started here. Just letting everyone in. It is 2 o'clock on the nose. Okay. Maria, you have the helm in terms of letting everyone come in. And I'm so glad to be able to start off this industry guest speakers introduction and having some very talented and long-standing people in the consulting industry join us in class today to share some of their thoughts as to what consulting is all about, what it's like to actually live it and be in it, and to do everything that delights customers and make them be and respect you as a trusted advisor, as a consultant to them. I'm really happy to be able to offer you a front row seat to this these days. It seems so frequent now that we're doing and providing people with access to webinars and everything else online that now all of us have front row seats. So it looks like most of the students are coming in now. Let's see, and Maria will just let all of them come in. And what we're going to do, I'll mention the agenda first, and then we'll start off with Joel and go to Nanda, and then end with Andy. And that will bring us through the session, and we'll have questions and answers all the way through. So for the actual work that's ahead, let me introduce the first person that's going to be speaking, Joelle Chu. She's a National University of Singapore School of Computing fellow, and she's with our advanced computing executives. She comes with a long and storied background in terms of working in the US for General Electric and Cisco. When she was at General Electric, she worked under Jack Welch, and you'll see in her presentation that fire and that drive that Mr. Welch put into the whole GE organization has stood her very well in all that she still does today. She came back to Asia and worked at family conglomerates and guided them, and was recently chief technology officer for one of those large family organizations, helping to transform the way they do business. And has also been working in a consulting firm here in Singapore until she joined us at NUS. I'm really glad to have Joelle share with you. We also have Nanda, and he's from Ernst & Young. And Nanda and I got to meet through several people, and we found out that by being connected into the supply chain area, which is his expertise, and he's been doing supply chain transformation, supply chain system integration for many, many years. Originally a chemist though, so anything is possible when you're as brilliant as Nanda is. And we happen to also run in the same circles as SAP leaders do, and some of the guys that work at Zoetis, which is one of the top healthcare for animals in supply chain. And so Nanda, it's very interesting that he's well respected and well regarded in the entire supply chain industry. When you meet people, they do mention his name. And then Andy, I've just gotten to meet Andy today, actually, by video. So that's really fun, and that but he was highly recommended by a good friend of mine who's head of strategy at PwC. Andy's at PwC. He just joined a year ago, but he was ex-Uber and helping to do data analytics for Uber. So they were fighting the good fight here with Grab for a few years as well. And Andy was all about driving the data-driven decision-making there. And now he's doing that with the PwC clients. So I wish I could say, let's give them all a round of applause for joining, but it doesn't really sound great over the webinar, so we can just imagine. And I'll turn it over. Thanks, guys, to those of you who clapped. Yes, and we can certainly raise our hand with a reaction here as well. There's a a clap we could put by each one of our names there. So it looks like most everyone is in. And let me just double check as I normally do. Can everyone hear so far, see so far as well?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. So let me turn it over to Joelle. Welcome, Joelle.
Thank you, Keith, for that very complimentary introduction. So let's do this. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. So this. Sure. Okay, good. So as Keith has mentioned, I spent a good number of years in GE, and as I was thinking through what I'm going to talk to you guys about, I figured I should focus more on the people side, people from a customer's perspective, and also you as a consultant or aspiring consultant, what kind of qualities you need to have to be world-class. And with the passing of Jack Welch, I figured I should pay tribute to him and, you know, share some of the learnings I've had in my long decade with GE. So as I go through my career, I think the two important job or skills that I've acquired over the 26 years that I've been working is probably from my audit days and my GE days that made me the consultant that I am today. So as you can see, I started as an auditor. I went through my career doing different types of ERP consulting, as well as operation advisory, as well as actual operational management. I was even a maid, as in I did merger, acquisition, integration, and divestiture. So if you need me to merge, integrate, I can also help you get a divorce at the end of it. So I've done a lot of program management, lived in 17 countries, 30 cities, and today I'm here with NUS. Long journey, but at the end of the day, to be a consultant, to me, is really focusing on building that portfolio of skills, focusing on your core competency and build around it. Don't get distracted, because when I was growing up, I had people come along and say, oh, you know what? Projects is really hot now. You should go into service, you should go into projects. But no, I stuck to my core, which is financials. And the other thing I realized about being a consultant is that you've got to learn the business, meaning go through at least one business cycle, go through the ups and the downs, because when you become a consultant to a company, you need to share those success stories as well as failure stories, especially around your personal experience as a business leader. So my view is that you need to accumulate both consulting and client experience to be really world-class. So as I go through, we talk about consultants, right? To me, consultants are leaders, and I always go back to the 5 GE leadership growth traits. Now, after this class, please go Google, buy the book, and read the whole book by Jack Welch. So when you talk about the growth traits, this is something that GE really focus on when we as a GE employee, and I find it very relevant as a consultant. So first, outward focus. You got to be always thinking about your customers, right? Give them what they need and not what they want. Because a lot of times, if you give them what they want, it's probably going to be a failure for whatever projects you're working on. And the next thing is about showing expertise. Like I said before, domain knowledge, whether it's finance, supply chain, transportation management, audit, you got to have a core skill that you're an expert in, right? So that you can talk with confidence, and you'll be convincing too. The next thing is about inclusive leadership. I've learned very fast that as a consultant, it's never about me. It's always about my client, and we take 0 credit at the end of the day. And you know, in a corporate environment, you tend to get, you know, caught up in the politics and everything. But as a consultant, you don't get caught up in all those political maneuvers. So your focus is to make sure that you include everybody in all your discussions so that there's completeness. And I think the 4th point that is really important from a traits perspective is being a clear thinker. What I realized in all my advisory job is that clients tend to be very confused and they don't know what they want. So it is always the consultant's job to be there to bring clarity to the work at hand. And lastly, of course, it's about taking risk, right? So I've met with, I mean, I've been on the buy side and also the sell side. If you talk about advisory services, I've met some advisors who are very good because they understand that not all engagements have a playbook, right? Sometimes we're in really uncharted waters. Keith can probably attest to it in our most recent engagement in Hanoi. It was every day was a new story. So there's no playbook. So as consultants, you need to be out there, be flexible, and be ready to take some risk and define new game rules. So to me, these 5 traits are very important traits to, as it applies to any GE leaders in how we measure our employees. I mean, back then, I think it's very applicable in the consulting world too. And to add to that, I think there's 2 very important attributes to be for any consultant. So the first one would be awareness. That's one thing that I find lacking as I go to different engagement. Awareness about self. What are your limitations? What are your self? What about your, what are your limitations, your strength? And of course, that's the whole culture, politics, your stakeholders, users, and situation. So that awareness comes with experience. I think you need to be constantly aware of, especially who your stakeholders are, how you read them, and what exactly are you trying to solve. Because at the end of the day, it's not about a technical solution. It is a very political decision as well. I'll give you a sharing here. I was recently advising a client who has grown through acquisition. And the most recent acquisition they had in a country, overseas, puts that acquisition at 50% share of the total company revenue. So they were arguing about, what software to choose and everything. And it was writing on the wall that if we would choose the incumbent, which is the existing software that we're using in Singapore today, there'll be major rejection. So no amount of change management will drive that adoption. So at the end of the day, what I did was I just told my client, you know what? Don't bother pitching your software. Just take a third leg, which is none of you get to win. We'll just go with a third option so that we can drive adoption and not have a failed project. So awareness like this is very critical. And I find it very lacking in a lot of the advisors I meet today, even in users, right? So at the end of the day, don't be clueless. Open your eyes, right? Observe and stop looking at your phone. The next thing is relevant. Being relevant is so important. I see people who have been in advisory for like a long time, which is great. Lots of experience. Again, Keith can attest to it. We were just on our job in Hanoi, and we see all these consultants who have been around, but they are pitching some really old ideas that I'm like, where are they from? And this is not like your, mom and pop ABC advisory. It's like the tier 1A, like the NK of the world. No mention names, right? So I feel that as a consultant, we get for a very good one, you're always busy. You're always on the road. You don't have a time to really invest. You got to find time to invest in yourself and really reinvent and reimagine. I'll share this other personal story. So I wrote the ERP days. I would say that I made a lot of money from SAP consulting. That was back in the boom days where they would pick up an opera singer in Belgium and train that opera singer to be an SAP consultant and pay big dollars, right? Because it was this whole Y2K ERP, SAP was huge. And then 10 years went by, we started having outsourcing, we're having more and more SAP ERP consulting like running around, and the rates just started going down. And I'm going like, all right, time to differentiate myself. That is when I did a pivot and went over to merger acquisition and focused back to my process skill, my financial skills, but still stuck to system and process. So staying relevant, don't be Jurassic. Don't be in like that archive area of the library, right? So this is where I want to share about GE Imagination at Work. This was a fantastic campaign that was launched with $100 million of cost back in 2003. And it was all about reinvention and envisioning revolutionary products based on what we had before. So GE, for a big company that it was past tense, so sad. Even at its height, it was thinking about reimagining constantly. So GE Imagination at Work was our biggest slogan, and it drove a lot of improvement. With that, we came the whole Six Sigma Lean initiative. So I like this quote: if my mind can conceive it, my heart can believe it, and then I can achieve it. So you got to imagine, right? So next, I will leave you with how to be a really good consultant. So I love this. I love Jack Welch leadership traits. It's my favorite. The 4 E's and the P is famous. I mean, if you don't know it, I highly encourage you to memorize it and quote it, live by it. Energy is just, the upbeat attitude, the ability to energize others so that there is, especially when you're doing a project, trust me, it's very stressful. So you need to be able to have self-energize and energize others, and having the edge to say, to make very tough calls. That is what I see lacking in a lot of advisors, to say yes or no and not maybe, right? And then execution, just getting things done, no excuses. And lastly, just having that passion to drive, to sweat and believe. So what I observe, again, in the US and Europe and here, is that we got consultants that got energy and who can energize and who can execute. But what is really missing, I think, is sometimes the edge and the passion. And I think a part of it is because they get really fully utilized, right? So sometimes they just have to toe the line and give the recommendation and let the client make the decision. And sometimes I see that lack of passion to do what is right for the client. So as leaders, as consultants, if you ask whether they are born or made, I think it's both. The GE strategy is always to hire those with high energy, high passion. Everything else you can train and develop. So going back to, you got to invest in, as you enter the workforce, don't let your busyness hold you back from continuous training and developing. So another story I will share is that not too long ago, I was with a Big 5 consulting firm, and I noticed a lot of my consultants were always busy working on client job. None of them trained. None of them went for formal training. They all learned on the job, and that is very bad. So finally, I just want to go through the type of clients that I've experienced in, and I would share real quick. MNCs, they're very fact-based, cost-benefit analysis. They love industry references and brand name consultants. So it's a very requirements-driven type of advisory. And then you go to family businesses, which is what I like. I came back to Singapore to do for 4 years. It's all about trust. If you have the trust of the chairman, he'll just eat out of your hand. He'll do whatever you say. But you have to put up with inertia, no SOPs, and a lot of people who are loyal but no competency, right? So it's discovery. You need to spend a lot of time there to identify needs and opportunities. And finally, the government-linked enterprises, the co-ops, lots of SOPs, that's legacy, very slow in decision-making. I find them to be more analysis paralysis, but it's also a good place to do a lot of process re-engineering work. So it's needs-driven. They're probably in a burning platform. That's why they're willing to pay consultants to come in and do work, right? And finally, what I don't do startups, I don't do nonprofit, I don't do professional service at SMEs. I can save it for the next lecture on why I don't do those jobs. So with that said, that's all I have. Any questions? Did I hit my 10 minutes? I think I did 9, right? All right, actually, open for questions.
I do have a question. I was quite interested to find out why you don't do SMEs. Can you just give a quick
Okay, SMEs, I have some SME clients. The problem is that they are so stretched. They're really running very lean. So they don't have that many resources. So number one, okay, if you're talking about, if you're doing this as a job, they're not willing to pay. And so they don't see value in hiring somebody from outside and pay them a certain amount to tell them what to do. So my experience so far is that SME Tauke's, they think they've made it so far, made that money, grew this company, who half their age is going to be able to tell them to do things differently. So that's why I don't advise SMEs. Yeah, even those that has gone public, I find them talk the talk but do not walk the talk. They will in public, yeah, I'm ready for transformation and this and that. When you show them like, you know, hey, dude, you need to, Mr. So and so, you need to pay this much to buy this new platform. Nah, they will start, you know, doing that. Dividing and calculator will come out. The 12-digit calculator will come out and go, no way, I'm not going to spend that money. Tell them you need to send your guys for data analytics training. So really, I've been thinking for like a year about moving to Office 365. Why would I spend my guys for data training? Da, da, da. So no SMEs. I tried. Trust me, I tried. I'm working on one right now. I'll tell you. Call me up 6 months from now. How did it go? This one is a little bit bigger, but I'll try again. It's called national service.
I feel your pain. I feel your pain.
Oh, good. You feel my pain? Are you doing internship with an SME right now?
No, I'm doing some freelance for an SME that is exactly the same. As in, like, you tell them, then they will give you the thing, oh, too expensive. Can you make it cheaper? That kind of thing. It's very ridiculous.
Oh, the word is free. Can you do it for free? Since you're a student, you should work for me for free. I'm giving you experience. Oh my God. They think I'm there to learn. All right. Next question. I love SMEs though. It's like, you can do that as part of your retirement job, like all my retired CIO friends, you know, in their 50s, you know, make the money. So we can advise for free in our 50s. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Welcome. No questions? Wow, clear as mud. Then I'm going to give you a test after this.
That's for sure.
Oh yeah, I love assessment. I even test my own clients. Okay.
And guys, if you could, hey, that's Isla that just poked it.
Yeah, that's Isla. Oh my God.
Hey everyone. So in this time where we have open for questions, every person's going to present first. Then you can ask 1 or 2 questions. So thanks, Ryan, for that first question. Can everyone put on their screen as well so that we can, again, say hello to everybody and just say hello as well. There's a question over here actually on YouTube. We are streaming this out to YouTube, and there's a question: which type of clients have the fastest project turnaround time? I guess in terms of making a decision to do the project.
MNCs. They make decisions as long as their CBAs are lined up, the pros and cons, all the evaluation, they have a tight timeline. And remember, the sponsor has to make sure he delivers something to get his bonus and promotions. So MNCs, because they are not, you know, they are executive hired in with deliverables packed to it. So usually if it's a big program, their goals and objective would have that packed to it. So delivery deadlines going live is drives the speed to delivery as well, which can also be very dangerous, right? I've had experience whereby senior leadership, even though it was very clear that we couldn't go live, it was a huge SAP project. There was no way we should be going live, but because your Gs and Os are tied to the go live date, we just brute force it, and it was a disaster. It was such a disaster. It was a lot of people had a heart attack, depression, fired. The list goes on.
Oh no.
Yeah, and that was GE. That was the reason why after that I went to Wisconsin to help them recover the foreign import from Singapore to crack some whip.
Oh, wow. All right.
MNCs, yeah.
Thank you. Let's go. Joel, you've given us a really good starting point here. Some of the things I highlighted were working backwards, the 4 E's and a P, and having that energy, having the ability to go and get people interested in what have you, in whatever it is you're having to work on. Edge, you said, was missing. Make tough calls, yes or no. But then passion, care deeply, and really put your heart and soul into it. And Joel was mentioning this client in Hanoi. We went and bought computers for them because we bought computers for the client because their procurement cycle is more than a year just to get like a bunch of computers.
486 days. And then they hired this tier 1 consultants to help them streamline it to a goal of 105 days. I'm like, it's okay. Keith and I will go shopping. And we even funded it. That's passion. And that day we could get things done, get some sexy visualization going. But yeah.
So put skin in the game.
Yeah.
All right. So now I'm gonna. So that's the 4 E's and the P's she highlighted. Sorry. Then she talked about the GE, Jack Welch. Make sure you find out all about what he was doing there, read it, that book, and then finally give them what they want, what they need. Sorry, give them what they need, not what they want, which is what we talked about throughout class. You know, ask them questions, ask questions, observe the situation. And Joelle, thanks a lot for highlighting that to everyone today as well. Let me turn this now over to Nanda. Nanda, if you could bring us into the world of Ernst & Young and software systems implementations and supply chain and everything else that's going on.
Thank you, Keith. I think I'm loud and clear. Let me share my screen first. Are you able to see the screen? Excellent. Good afternoon to you all. And yes, thanks, Keith, for that lovely introduction. And thanks, Joel, for all those do's and don'ts. Yes, to keep yourself relevant, people like us do forget in the midst of our work and business, but it was good to hear about it. And the class is so much fun to be with you all here. It's like I go back 19 years to my B school days, where I used to be sitting back there and people used to come and speak things about consulting and about industry and whatnot. So, well, what do I do? My name is Nanda, and I run the SAP supply chain for Ernst & Young in Asia Pacific and Japan. And so my main day job is about understanding how to model the supply chain solution for the best interest of our clients. Now, what I intend to run in the next 10 minutes is to share with you what would be consulting in the future, or what is consulting now, and what exactly we are trying to do as part of consulting. So, as we all know, there are 3 disruptors which will converge across all industries, and they will transform customers, the business, and operating models. Now, here we are, COVID-19, as we are just sharing before, it's a new way of working. Believe me, we are presenting, we are having customer interactions, we are talking to our suppliers and whatnot, using all technology to its best of its advantage. So going ahead, what we strongly feel from an industry perspective is that would be an enhanced customer experience, what will be driving how customers or how business would run, or how industries would run the business. And to meet this enhanced, intimate customer experience, business would undergo transformation. So by transformation, I mean there'll be a business model transformation or an operating model transformation. So we'll get into the details, but in long and short, consulting is about trying to meet all of these 3 main pillars. And why it has so become is, number one, couple of reasons that it is becoming cognitive, in the sense there is a rise of artificial intelligent machines. So that's driving a rapid breakthrough in cognitive computing, from chatbots, streamlined customer experience as we're having here, advanced analytics, image recognition. You go in, to certain offices here, there are facial recognition in play. So what they do, they recognize your face. So that's going to be driving all this new ways of working. In addition to that, we are going to see the connectivity. Now, what is connectivity is the fusion of data. We'll hear Andy in a bit, but is the fusion of data, technology, platforms, physical devices. We use your iPhones, we use to send in all our cards, credit cards. This all together will unlock an entirely new approach to the business model. So the Internet of Things as well is also enabling unprecedented use of data to remove the costs. But given that these two new ways of working, automation of the front and back end will still exist and will be still fortified along with developments in human machine interface. So this, we feel, are going to be the new consulting ways. And this is what is going to drive the new ways how business will interact with the customers. Now, if this is what consulting is all about, if I go one level deeper of what consulting is, it's about transformation. We rightly heard Joel a couple of minutes ago. So it's about the way we want to change, the things that changes. So we are undergoing a transformation along with our customers. Now, what does transformation exactly mean? So it's a combination of various parameters. The reason why I am talking about transformation management is going ahead, you can choose your career in any of these spheres or areas. So you can be working around the digital trust, which is what I say the cyber way. That means you have privacy, security, data usage, cloud systems, GDPR, you name it. So there is an enormous amount of emphasis on the cyber security of all the transactions. Now, that comes across what we call as an experiential way or experiential-led business design. So whatever changes in operating model we do from a business standpoint or an operation standpoint, or from a supply chain or whatever it is, the customer is in the heart of it. So it is more experience-led than systems-led. And all of these will not be fruitful unless and until we keep in view the people aspects. So what does it mean is we are creating workforce and talent network of tomorrow that will respond to the pace of this change. So it means a lot of change management is like upskilling, reskilling of the resources, which we hear a lot from our government today as well. So that's a bit of change that we foresee. And in addition to that, not to undermine data analytics. So we have one more speaker who would be enforcing on this specific aspect, but data analytics is mainly to drive meaningful and new business insights. So whatever transaction we do, this has to be more cognitive, more insightful, and more action-oriented. And business would be able to take those decisions only when they have sufficient analytics to prove or to back up to their decisions. And how do we do it? We use a platform and technology, and that's where I work. Is we have the hyperscalers these days, like that of Microsoft Azure, like you have heard Amazon, Google, plus you have the ERP products like SAP and all, who are providing a platform, a set of technology to enable all those what we have discussed now. So these all platform and technology come hand in hand with an experience-led business design and helps to enable the digital transformation for all our companies. And when I say the transformation management, it also means creating a vision and roadmap. It's driving investment in the right direction. It's about tax. It's about innovation, because it builds up the capabilities to enable the business to continuously self-transform. Again, I pull you back to what Joel mentioned, is we have to remain, we have to continuously learn and upskill ourselves and remain essential in business. So innovation plays an immensely important role in today's world. So there are a lot of disruptions that we're seeing in this short horizon. And if the companies do not stay on top of the game and do not continuously innovate, there is a high chance that one disruptor would disrupt the business they are in today. So this is what consulting is today, or would be in the next 5-10 years. So at this point of time, it's very the way that the speed with which the world is changing is really quite a challenge to predict what would happen 5 years down the line. But yes, these are the pivots around which the consulting business would grow. And I'm sure I'm sharing this with you is to give you a sneak peek in what the future would be. What would be the areas that entices you as the passing out batch for this year? Would you like to do get a career around the business design, or you want to see yourself they're designing a platform with all the mobility solution and the cloud solutions, or you think you are good at doing analytics or in the cyberspace? So this gives you a complete view of to pick and choose a specific way of doing business or consulting in today's world. And not to forget the industry layer. You could be a specialist in a given industry like consumer products, or for that matter, manufacturing setup, or an auto industry. Pick an industry of choice, and you blend it with what platform and what areas you want to focus. That could give you a starting point as a consultant in your career. Now, with said so, how do we, I'll share with you, it's a very typical career path. And the reason why I've picked up this line, or I've just made it, is because to give you a view of where do you see yourself maybe 10 years or 15 years down the line. Well, what's the end goal? What is that you want all to achieve when you start off as a consultant? So we always see the initial part that, yes, I will play a critical role as an analyst in a core team. I'll be a business analyst working in a team and doing a lot of analysis for our business. It doesn't stop there, but then you grow into an associate, and then you become a senior associate. You take increasingly complex scope of work. You support the managers to drive results, and then you become a manager who oversees a project from start to end, who is mainly to leading and facilitating meetings with the client. You go more on an independent manner as when you're a manager, and then you scale up to being an associate partner, exec director, to lead multiple projects and help develop new business within the current and new clients. So all of these, and then it lands up as a partner where you are the people and client leaders overseeing multiple projects and driving the strategy for tomorrow. So I hope that this path, this is one of a typical path, more or less is similar amongst the organization, but then this is how you grow in a consultant life. The last one is why we fail. So I strongly feel like we should be cognitive about the fact of what are the pitfalls and what we should avoid when we are a consultant. So it's not the consultant expertise, is not the product that the client buys. I'm reiterating what we heard earlier. So it is all about the client results. It's all about achieving the business aspirations of our clients. So we tend to forget that the client prerogative are of utmost importance, and we try to bring forth to the client what we know and what we have been doing for ages. So that's one thing you should be cautious about. The second part is the scope is determined solely by what problem you're solving. So what we ignore in this part in a system implementation is the client readiness for change. We can have the best of the systems in place, we can have the best of the solutions in place, but if the client is not the tech savvy, they will never ever use the system that is put into the place. So it might be a gold-plated solution, but it might not be used by the client for the day-to-day work. So what I'm trying to reinforce here, that in a consultant's life, it all hovers around the client's results and the client needs. The third point is we always aim for one big solution. This used to be a case maybe 5-10 years ago, where it's about 10 months, 1 year, couple of years project, and we wait for the solution to be built and then we see the success. But these days it's quite rapid and quite fast, not because of anything, but because the world is changing in that rapid way. So we have actually shifted our focus from trying to achieve one big solution. We are more trying to deliver incremental success to the clients, which is more what we call as an agile way of delivering the business. And the last, As consultant, we typically tend to draw a line of what are the responsibilities between the clients and consultants. So it's like, it's not my job, it's your job, and it's not yours, it's somebody else. So this doesn't yield any results in the long run. So right when you join a firm as an analyst or as a consultant, you should always focus, it's all about partnership. So the three takeaways here that about my 2 cents based on my years of doing consulting work, that anything and everything that a consultant does is for the client. The client results and aspirations are of paramount importance. The consultants are only enabling, the systems are enabling the solution to meet that and that only objective. And now, before I let open the floor for questions, one liner from my side is, it is your attitude. And yes, aptitude is important, but not solely your aptitude that will determine your altitude, that the heights you gain as you go ahead in your career. Wishing you all the best for the future. I think we can open the session for the question and answers.
Thank you so much, Nanda. That was really great. Questions out there?
Okay, I actually have a question. This is for actually for all three of the guests, so it's not targeted at anyone. So currently under Prof. Keith, we are given an assignment where we have to find a real client and work on the project with them. So right now, the challenge we are facing is that our client is taking a very long time to get back to us, and we find that they are not really helping us to complete the project. So what I want to ask is, have you guys been in this situation where it's very hard to get information and to get help from the client? And if so, how do you tackle a case like this?
It's okay, Bob. Let me take a first stab at it. Yes, so we do land up in situations sometimes where the client, it's not that they do not want to share information, it's that at that point of time, the priorities are a little different. I'll give an example from the current situation we are in. Now, in the current situation, if you are doing any consulting project, the main focus of the clients today would be to ensure that they fix a supply chain because the manufacturing has been stopped for a couple of weeks. They have to find alternate sources of supply because some suppliers maybe were based out of the Hubei province. So one automotive manufacturer had to stop because the suppliers of the cushions that we use in the car was based out of Hubei province, and it had to stop its manufacturing. So it's not that they're not interested to share with you. It's just that, the priority at that point of time gets shifted to the immediate ones, and this takes a little bit of backseat. Now said so, if you're able to convince the client of how we manage the situation is, we do have a discussion with the client to reinforce the fact, one, why do we think it is in the best interest for the client at the given point, and how the data they share are going to help in devising the solution for them. So you tell the reason and you tell the output, plus also you should be cognitive about the fact that at times these work take a little bit of backseat for a time period, but it's not the client doesn't want to do it.
Okay, thanks for answering.
Thank you, Rob.
Actually, I do have another question for Nanda. Just now you mentioned about the why we fail. I just want to know whether you have have you been in a situation where the project fails? So maybe the customer changed their minds halfway, or maybe they realize that they do not have enough budget, so they just cut the project off.
Yes, I'll be brutally honest. I have come across such situations. At times, it has been not a financially viable outcome for us, but at times we have sat across face to face with the client to understand what are the current hindrances they have and how we can devise together a solution that meets the objectives and priorities of both parties. So in case, there is a slowdown and the client is under financial pressure, then we find means and ways to see how we can reduce the financial burden of the clients. For example, this situation, most of the business would have a cash flow crunch because the suppliers are not giving them the material, the customers are not picking up the material that they have created, manufacturing plants are on remote, yeah, so therefore they're more or less operating at a suboptimal capacity. Now, in this situation, if you're doing a project, we might get back to the client and say, look, okay, we might not go ahead with this, but we think we should be able to help you in identifying the right suppliers to help to get your supply chain up and running. So it's more of a dialogue that we have with the client, but all said and so, it's important that the client aspirations, the client objectives, and the client prerogatives are never compromised or diluted. So that's the 2 cents. And if you're clear on this aspect, I think things really fall into place.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nanda. And any other last question here before we go into Andy? Okay.
Can I ask?
Yeah. Go ahead, Nita.
Yeah, so my name is Nita. So I would like to ask, for let's say professional consultants, right? They will have some kind of a formal document for agreements, like a contractual agreements for all the stakeholders. And I want to know what are the things that we should look out for in those documents as a consultant, like to protect our own interests.
Thank you, Nita, for bringing this question. So the formal document is typically called as a statement of work in most of the case, which is relevant for the consultants. Now, a statement of work, the main thing that's highlighted in there is what is the scope of work. Means what are the features, functionalities of business functions that we will want to cover. The second thing is what is the plan or what is the duration for accomplishing the deliverables that we have highlighted in the SOW. So one is what is the scope for the consultants, how long we have planned for doing it, what is the deliverables that the client would expect, which will ensure that we have accomplished the work or we have completed the work. So these are the main 3 things. So we have more level 1, level 2 details below, like the whole program plan is broken down multiple phases and what are the attributes, what is the roles and responsibilities, who owns what are the RACI metrics, the segregation of duties between client and the consultants. But overall, it's about the scope, it's about the deliverables, and it's about the timeline.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nita.
Just following up on that question, any view, Nanda, Joel, Andy, in regards to intellectual property?
So IP is typically also a part of the contractual document. Is when we do a consulting work for a client, my experience has been, if it is done fresh, absolutely dovetailing the client requirements, the IP is vested with the client. But if it is something where, for example, we have developed in-house as a product to deliver value to our customers, so the IP still continues with us. So it's a very case-to-case basis, and depending on how do we deliver the business needs, but we clearly ink that out much before the project starts.
I always struggle with this whole, we build from scratch for a client, the same consultants move on to another job, same industry. You can't avoid applying what we learn. That is the reality. So the fact is, for something that's a new use case, right? I mean, the first client is always the one that's kind of like paying for all our training, like it or not. I mean, from the buy side and also from from a person who was also a consultant that developed a solution. I mean, I go to the next client side. It's so hard. It's so hard not to remember what I did at my last client, right? I mean, that is the reason why clients hire us, because I've done all the same, all your competition. And now I think clients understand that and they want to be the first, and sometimes we discount it a little bit, right? But what really drives me nuts is when I have people who come in and do a POC, took what they did for me and went on and developed a product. I had that. That was a data project. Not you, Andy, don't worry. It was another tier 2 company from Indonesia. Oh my God. But I think IP is something that I think is very hard to say that, you know, we built this for you. Is you know, yeah. Unless it's a product we build, you know.
Yep.
But if you're talking about a process, a new way of account, you know, some of these stuff that we do is definitely yeah, I mean, that's how we can cite those references when we go sell the next gig, right? Hey, I did this here. So trust me, all my consultants know how to do this because they did this job in the last client. That's how we close deals, right? From a BD perspective.
Yep.
So I don't know, IP, clients pay and we take. That is the fact of life, right? I'm being honest because I develop IP for clients too, right? Yeah, I just want to be honest.
So if let's say our group develop a software from scratch, but they only give us like a problem statement that we and what they want the software to functions. So but they are not paying us anything. So does this software still applies to our client as well, or we can claim the software and then introduce to other companies who have a similar industries
Application?
something. Yeah.
So that would be in your contract when you, right? To say that whatever the NUS students develop, it's just the, in fact, it's not yours. I think it's the NUS property, right? Isn't that key? From an IP perspective?
That's true. Everything that students create ends up being NUS property in the first instance.
Yeah. Not the client, not the student. It's the NUS property. Sorry to, not sorry, but that's just how it is. Because you can, then you're going to, because then we can take it to the next level. Prof. Keith invested in all this time advising and coaching or whatever. So maybe he should claim ownership of that. You know what I'm saying?
And the nice thing is that the school has a Office of Legal Affairs and also the Intellectual Property Office that can help you convert your product into something, and the school will back it up with funds and stuff like that as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, everyone, we've gone for almost an hour. Let's take a quick 5-minute break, or maybe 3 minutes. Just stand up and at least stretch your legs out and what have you, so that we can get ready to welcome Andy up here. Let's take a 5-minute break though, and we'll start right back up at 3 o'clock. And that way we'll get Andy's perspective and continue from there. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much, Nanda, for a wonderful presentation and sharing. I really liked what you had in terms of really the three pillars. So customer experience being important, operational and business transformation. That was great. And then I like the rest of your presentation where you talked about you need to know the environment. And you put in so many new terms that if we, 5 years ago, if you had made the same presentation, it would have been a completely different set of terms and technology that would have been there. I thought it was great seeing automation and AI, etc. And it just encourages us to continue to learn as a consultant. I think one of the key things you made us think through was you have to always be learning. That's wonderful to hear, and that tied together well with what Joelle had said too. I also liked what where you added that make sure that you partner with the client. Don't draw lines. This is my job. This is your job. Really grow a partnership with them. To be that trusted advisor with the customer, you have to know them. You have to have a great attitude about it as well. I think it's so interesting that both you and Joelle have highlighted these soft skills, that are so critical in order to be a successful consultant. And with that, I'm going to bring us over to Andy. Andy, thanks for joining us today, and turn it over to you.
Hi, guys. Thanks very much for having me. Speaking of soft skills, now I'm going to talk to you about technical skills. No. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to address you guys today as you're in this kind of stage of finishing up your course and deciding what it is you want to do next, and kind of weighing up consulting and whatnot. So, look, as mentioned, I run the data and analytics, or what we call the advanced analytics consulting group at PwC. And what I thought I'd do today is tell you just a little bit of my journey, what I went through to kind of get to the position that I'm in. It's a bit of an unusual journey, but I think there's probably some lessons in it. I'll also tell you a little bit about what the team does, what my team do kind of every day, what are the sorts of problems that businesses want solved with data. And then to build on the other guys' points, I'll also talk a little bit about what I think makes a good consultant. I think a lot of good points were kind of mentioned by Joelle and Nanda already. And I think I have a different view again on some of the skills that are kind of important to succeeding in consulting. So that's what I'll talk through. To be honest, I'm going to commit a cardinal sin of consulting and not have any slides. I'm doing that partly so it's harder for Keith to take notes, and he has to actively listen to me. And I'm hoping it's true of all of you too. Also, I didn't want to make a slide about myself. And I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about my own journey. Okay, so where did it all start for me? Believe it or not, relatively similar to you guys, I graduated university with a Bachelor of Information Systems. That was in Australia. And I combined that with a degree in marketing and finance. So what was the cool thing to do when I graduated? That was to join investment banks. And so they were the startups of my graduating year. And so that's what I did. I joined Deutsche Bank. And I joined the trading floor. And not as the kind of glamorous, high-flying trader that I think I had hoped and expected to be, but as the backroom guy that settled the trades. And one of the first tasks I was ever given in that role in joining DB was to reconcile trades. So effectively, many trades happen in a market on a daily basis, as you can imagine. And it is somebody's job from each organization to take all the trades you do and match those against the trades of the counterparties and make sure that there are no mistakes, no wrong values, no wrong client names, no wrong company names, et cetera. And let me tell you, nothing could be less exciting than matching two sides of a trade thousands of times all day, every day. Well, maybe licking envelopes, but to be honest, my team didn't have envelopes to lick. So this was the job for the kind of junior entry-level person in the team. And so joining this this team, with my prestigious information systems degree, what did I do? I automated it. Oh, obviously, this was in VBA at the time because coding was a little bit more primitive, but I automated the process. And I didn't do it because I was interested in improving the company's bottom line. I wasn't even trying to show off. I did it because I was super lazy, because I had the coding capability to do it. And it meant I had more time to go to lunch with the other grads or to go to the company drinks, which were a big thing at the time. And so I was prioritizing, my time, and this is the way I figured out I could do it. And so, of course, someone saw, and the talent was recognized, and I was rewarded, and all those sorts of things. But I wasn't made CEO. I wasn't thrown a parade. It's not a Cinderella story. I was just acknowledged for the good work that I'd done. And for me, it really cemented a few of those kind of early lessons that kind of propelled me through my career. One was that at every job, you start at the bottom and you kind of earn your way up. And you'll hear, and I've worked for a lot of different organizations. I've done a lot of really cool things, but each time I've had to prove myself. It doesn't matter what pedigree you come in at, you have to keep proving yourself. And it's very similar to life as a consultant. As Joelle pointed out, you get hired in because you're an expert, because you've done it before, but pretty quickly you need to be able to prove it. You earn your right to be a consultant, and just as you do in your career, you earn your right to progress in your own career. So that was an important lesson for me. The second was that laziness combined with coding is kind of the mother of all invention, and I've leaned on that heavily through my career. I always figured that there was a smarter way to do things, a faster way to do things, and if I could understand how things work, and I could find a better way to do them, it would make my life easier, and it would make other people's life easier as well. I also found out pretty quickly that it's not hard to differentiate yourself if you're willing to take a pretty crappy job, but do it really well. Reconciling trades wasn't a very interesting job. Nobody wanted to do it. But by taking it on and making the best of it, was something that saw me quickly rewarded and gave me the next challenge. And I think that's important to remember, because even when we do consulting work, very true to me today, I'll tell you about the projects we work on. Some are incredibly exciting and some are not. But you've got to do all of them to keep the team going. You've got to kind of keep everybody busy, keep the business running. And so this ability to take any job, to Joelle's point, to get excited about it, to motivate other people to be excited about it, and to do it really well, regardless of how simple the job seems, is a really key kind of trait for me for a great consultant. So what I also didn't realize at the time was that this would be my first of many jobs in the field of data. Yeah, it was pretty boring data. It was very similar data, but it was the beginning of the constant in my career, which was working around data. So from the bank, I went on and had what I guess can only be called a fairly varied career. I went native in the Philippines for a number of years, running a non-profit loaned money to women, mainly housewives, to start small businesses. Maybe you could say, what's the data in that? Well, I built them a transaction management system. I coded how they manage transactions. I did the board reporting. I did the donor reporting. I brought the data element to the non-profit world in the job that I was doing. I went to work for a British brokerage firm when I first moved to Singapore, and I was involved in the building of a platform that was assisting trading, but also monitoring trading activity. This was the beginning of really starting to understand how people use systems and how you can use that information to improve the customer experience, but also the level of insight that you get from tracking people's activity. I had my first taste of consulting. I worked for a part of the Boston Consulting Group, and I advised the Australian banks, were my clients, on how to spend their exorbitant IT budgets, which was a lot of fun to tell very senior CTOs what to do, particularly from a data-backed industry-backed, well kind of thought out perspective. Gave me a real sense of the influence you could have in consulting, and one of the things that attracts me to the space. I went back to school. I did my master's in predictive analytics. I did it while I was working from Northwestern in the US, and then I joined Uber. And so hopefully some of us still remember Uber. I was there. I was the first data hire in the region. I built that team out to about 50 data scientists across 5 or 6 countries. And I ran that organization. And data, as you can imagine, in a company like Uber, is behind all the decision making, whether it's strategy or marketing or operations or customer support. And so that's what my team did. We were the operational analytics team. And I had a lot of fun building and running that team over a period of sort of three years. And then I was there. I watched as Grab ate Uber. I chose not to join Grab. That's when I kind of made my decision to go back into the consulting world. That's when I joined PwC. And kind of, I guess, how I ended up coming to speak to you guys today. And there are a few different kind of reasons behind that. But one in particular was I'd worked so hard on solving the problems for an individual company, and it really excited me. But I hadn't looked up and looked around at what was going on in the industry in a little while. And I really wanted the opportunity to get in there and start helping other people solve problems, starting to shape the way the industry used data. And I felt like joining back into consulting was a way for me to help influence the industry. So that was why I decided to try my hand at it again, and that's what I do now. And look, I mentioned this crazy path of mine only because I want to illustrate that there are many paths to a career in consulting. And so whether you join straight out of school or come to consulting later in your career, it's really important that you understand what it is that consultants do and what makes a good one. People will look to you, different things from you, if you have an industry background or if you've been consulting. One of my peers is the opposite to me. He joined PwC as an intern and has been with PwC ever since. We're both very effective, but we're very effective for different reasons. We bring different things and we work incredibly well together. But both of us really understand what it means to be a consultant and what companies look to us for. So it's important that you understand there's lots of different paths. But so what do I do? What do me and my team do? So as I said, I lead what's called the Advanced Analytics Consulting practice at PwC, which is pretty much just a fancy way of saying I get called in to help businesses solve their problems, just like any other consultant. But typically, in my case, they have a need to process a large amount of data to find the answers that they need. And it's pretty much as simple as that. So what kind of problems might they be? Quite often, it's how to make more revenue. And that's generally through customer-related questions. So which of my customers are the most valuable to me? Which ones have a high likelihood of leaving me? And why are they planning on leaving me? And how do I intervene and stop that? Why do they buy what they're buying at the moment? And most importantly, how can I make them buy more or make them buy other things? And that might not just be for my company, that might be a partner company or part of my ecosystem that I'm trying to generate more business through. Sometimes it's also helping them improve their operations, similar to another side of the world. So for me, it could be things like, which of the machines that I run are likely to need maintenance in the near future? And again, how do I intervene and prevent that any downtime? Or another one that's becoming really important at the moment, how do I keep my suppliers informed before I run out of inventory so we don't have to pause our production? There are obviously a lot of different factors playing into inventory at the moment. And so how are we keeping that kind of an informed ecosystem? There's also an interesting player as it relates to your supply chain and your operations is organizations are becoming more and more responsible for those that they buy goods from or sell goods to. And so often this is, how can I manage the safety or the carbon emissions or the some of the external factors of my supply chain, and how can I better understand those organizations that I'm partnering with on such a close basis? Then on the other hand, sometimes it's helping organizations buy or sell data to each other. This has become a relatively popular topic in recent time, and is something I spend a good amount of time doing. So often organizations will want to gain new information about a customer or about businesses or about the wider economic environment outside of the data that they collect. There was a belief previously that in order to best understand your customer, you've got to trap that customer in your system for as long as you possibly can. Unless you happen to be Netflix, that's a very, very difficult thing to do. So organizations are now looking, how can I work with an ecosystem of partners to better understand my customers in different facets of their life? And I do a lot of work helping organizations to either share or buy and sell the data that makes that work. And this can be used for marketing purposes, for strategic purposes, looking for new products or product design, improving customer experience, etc. And sometimes, if I'm really lucky, my projects are altruistic as well. Even trying to save lives. So I have one of my favorite projects that I work on at the moment is figuring out how to predict and prevent safety incidents before they happen, both in mining sites and on marine vessels. So it's data and analytics is a toolkit, really, and sometimes the fun thing about it is getting to apply it to a whole lot of different kind of interesting scenarios like that. And then, as I mentioned, of course, sometimes the work is a lot less exciting, but equally important. Quite often the work is, how do you help management measure and tune how their business is performing? Or how do you help them make kind of better decisions on a daily basis? How do you give them the visualization tools, the modeling tools, the data environments that help them do the work that they need to do? But all parts of it are an important part of the getting value of data. So it seemed like mine has to kind of work up and down this space. And so, as you can imagine, organizations produce and consume huge quantities of data. So there's a fair bit of work out there if you have the ability to help them process that data and get the insight that they're looking for out of it. But like any field, like any profession, there are people that do this well, and there are people that don't. So I think it's really important that we understand what makes a good data consultant. I can speak to data as the guys have spoke more broadly, but a good data consultant versus a bad one. So obviously, all the good data consultants are at PwC. No, I'm kidding. So obviously there are a lot of facets that make a good data consultant, and for me there's probably three things. And I do a huge amount of hiring, and so these are probably the three things that I focus on the most when I think about who's going to be successful in my team or others like it. The first one is problem solving. So consultants are problem solvers, really, and the difference between maybe a data consultant versus a consultant in other field is, all of us have to have logical problem-solving abilities. We need to look at something and want to solve it. On the data side, you have to be able to back that up with a relative degree of technical data-solving ability as well. So we use different languages, different coding techniques, different platforms, but it all comes down to an ability to solve problems. The second piece for me, hasn't been mentioned explicitly by the others, but I think it's also important, is communication. So for me, again, in my field, there's two types of communication. There's the being able to listen to a client, understand what they really want, what they're really trying to solve, and being able to explain what you've done to the client. We talked about SMEs a little bit before. Sometimes it can be challenging to convince people kind of what you've done and the value you've brought or what you're trying to achieve. So that ability to communicate. But also in my field, there's a degree of technical communication. So if you're going to put data or numbers or charts or something in front of an organization, you need to really think about how that information is being consumed. And so, you don't get to control the narrative of a lot of the data that you produce after it kind of leaves you. So there's a degree of technical communication that's really important as well. And finally, for me, the last one is business acumen, or just an interest in business in general. So one of the things I've noticed the most about people who are really successful consultants, they're the ones who just can't help asking why. I've been given this task. What's the bigger problem? What am I trying to solve? Where does it add value? Why? And that's really underlying sign of a good data consultant, a good wider consultant, is having that hunger to solve the bigger problem that sits around. There was a question previously that I thought was a really good one about clients not having time to come back and answer questions for you. And as I said, wanting to know why, asking questions is a good thing. We're taught at school, there are no stupid questions. The problem is with clients, there are, or there are clients that waste their time, questions that waste their time. So what's really keen is wanting to understand all facets, but also being able to research, make proxies, and answer as many questions as you possibly can, so you make it really easy for the clients to help you. And so, I think that's one of the things is you've got to have that level of interest if you're going to do well in this field. And as I said before, my fourth one that I sort of mentioned is, the right to be a consultant or whatever needs to be earned. Organizations pay a lot of money for us and for our opinions. You'd like to think for good reason, but as the Spider-Man quote goes, with great power becomes great responsibility on that front. And so I liked the point that was made by both the guys previously, that if you are going to advise something, you need to have a relative degree of expertise in yourself. And so that continual learning and continual development really is key to being a good consultant. So look, that's kind of all I really wanted to cover. I wasn't tracking my time, so hopefully I was okay. But happy to do some questions.
You were fine, and let's open it up to questions. Go ahead. Go ahead. And now we can. I like what you said about asking why and asking more questions and asking good questions as well. So these are all things that we've gone through. Right, Sri?
Yeah, that is one of the things which you have taught us, Professor. Actually, I do have one question which I want to pose to all the three of the speakers. Thank you so much for coming here to speak to us. My name is Sri Lakshmi, and right now, as you have, as I can see that you have so many years of experience in consulting. I'm just curious, how do you maintain the relationship after a successful completion of your project? I mean, there are two aspects of it, right? So I'm pretty sure that you would have come across a situation where the project which you have done is not so successful. In that case, how do you maintain the relationship with the client? Because you see, potentially they are your future clients too. So how do you maintain that?
That is a really good question. I will start, but I will hand over to the other two who have been doing this longer, and I'm sure have more examples than I do. There is no doubt that you get to the end of some projects and both of you are happy to see the back of each other. And it's not necessarily because you didn't get to the results. It's because often if you're trying to change in an organization, if you're trying to do something different, it can create a little bit of friction. And often when you're in the throes every day of trying to kind of make those changes, it can be a challenging process for all involved, for the consultant, for the client, etc. But you are very, very right about the ability to need to maintain those relationships. So it's not only because Singapore is such a small place. We discovered before we joined this call, so I pitched to Joelle recently, within the last month, and she gave me a walloping for my for our pitch. No, but so look, it is a very small space. So the relationships you maintain are very key. I think the key is, all I'll say, and I'll pass over, is, good work. Good work tends to encourage either extensions or prolonged relationships. Remembering that your clients are people too is kind of key, and everybody's going through these different things together, and trying to engage with them as people rather than just as clients is a key thing. And then managing both the successes, making them look good, but also helping them manage if things aren't going as well, and helping them kind of manage that internally, because it's really important that you're a partner for them. But I'll hand over to the other guys.
So I mean, Nanda, you go first. Oh, okay. So
ladies first, Joel. I'm on mute now.
Okay, so I was just gonna say, I think at the end of the day, whether it's success or failure, you build your own personal brand, and it's the client remembers you individually as a person versus the company you're with. I'll speak this from experience. I mean, I've got success and failures, in all my 26 years, right? But I would say that every single one of my clients is all through previous client referral, all the way back to Singapore. Like my third job in the US was at this company, a $1 billion semiconductor company. And then those clients, we had some hiccups, but those clients became friends. And subsequently, when they moved on to bigger and better things, and that's how I landed my GE gig, I landed my Cisco system gig when they moved on. So I think the important thing is, at the end of the day, act with utmost integrity and utmost passion for your client, for the greater good. Every client recognize it, because a failed project is never pinned down to one person. Of course, I've been on projects where we threw chairs at each other. So, but 10 years later, we can still laugh about it because we're passionate about that subject matter and doing it for the greater good. And people can recognize that. When you're past that, you look back, you can laugh at it. Unless you do something really bad, then yeah, we deserve to be ostracized. But I don't think anybody does anything intentionally bad to have like long-term damages. So that's my point of view. I mean, I've failed projects, I've successful projects. In the end, I still, clients do reach out, and sometimes I reach back out. So it's called being professionals too, right? So Nanda.
Thanks, Joel. Shri, I've been privileged to work in at least 4 continents: Asia, Africa, Americas, Europe, all of them. And I think there are 2 separate points there between maintaining relationship with the client and that to link with the project outcome. And again, one more point that you made was for future projects. Now, project outcome and future projects, you should see them as transactions, very separate. But relationship is more about having, the connect. And as Joel rightly pointed, the project outcome might not be conducive one, but the relationship still goes on. So you have to be sensitive about the client's aspirations generally, and it's more of a human relationship. So we do think that yes, project has gone bad and the client is not going to look at us and not going to interact with us. That's never the case. They do realize, and I think you should always keep them as 2 separate things. So that's my 2 cents here.
Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
Thanks, Shri.
I had another question for everyone here, Andy and Nanda, Joel. What is the current situation in regards to the job environment? In particular, what advice would you give in regards to internships or full-time opportunities at this time?
So I'll go first here. So Keith, at this point of time, from an industry standpoint, from the way we are interacting with our clients, there are a lot of unprecedented steps that are being taken. For example, starting today, we have, so there is a segregation of essential services, non-essential services, and which remains open and not. So we are in a currently in a situation where it is very unpredictable. But given that all our client and customers and us are getting adapted to the new ways of working, and we are still giving the utmost priority to delivering the client needs. So the requirement will continue to exist. So it's just about the unpredictability in the current situation, which might cause a little bit of lag in the decision, because all of them, like the clients, are grappling with making the supply chain more resilient, trying to find ways and means where they can optimize and improve the cash flows, and so as all business as we see around the world. So once we have a little bit of stability there, I think definitely there'll be need for a lot of projects will go on. It's just a matter of a month or so where things stabilize first, and then it will be business as usual. So irrespective of where we are, the need for internship, the need for full-time jobs are not going away anywhere. But yes, a new way of working definitely might come into the workplace.
Hi, because I'm happy to build on that, and maybe my opinion is maybe slightly more pessimistic, but but of the same vein to what Nanda was saying. So agree. The difficult thing about this situation is none of us really know how far and widespread the impact is going to be, either on the wider economies in which we operate, our clients and their businesses, or our own. And so, as we see this, we see the ripple effect kind of moving through different industries at the moment. So you've got, the very kind of customer facing, the tourism and the retail, the transportation, whatever, that are taking the brunt of it first. We're seeing it move through definitely in terms of inventory and supply chain changes and affecting production companies. And then we're seeing it affect service companies and things as well. So the impact is still largely being uncovered for us. And so what I would say is, if I was, as all of us through this scenario are thinking about, okay, what are our clients doing to adapt, and what do we have to do to adapt? And so we obviously have to make some interesting, decisions about, do we, invest in doing work, look for non-paid work, those sorts of things to help our clients through some of this period. And it may mean that, that the appetite for jobs and whatnot changes a little bit as we all kind of try and manage this. So what I would suggest to someone looking to join the industry is, to Nanda's point, I think, interns and grad jobs is still the great way of entering into an organization. And I would say, even if it looks like the grad jobs and things aren't, as strong a market as it was 3 months ago, it's also worth considering, what are your alternatives? Are there internships options? Are there other options where you can start to get involved, start to help out organizations, to wait through this period until either the grad jobs become back available? It's just a very difficult point to say.
Yeah, I think I echo Andy. If for those out graduating and looking for job internship, I would offer to do more for less if you can, and that's good opportunity to shadow anyone just to learn. Keep your time productively occupied. And as advisor to a couple of clients, I actually told them that this is the perfect time to re-platform and retool. You buy, because it's good bargaining power. All the software and the big 5, big 4 firms are desperate to get all the people out of the fish tank. You can bargain to the wazoo, and you get good rates for all these consultants, right? Depending though, we do have global rollouts, then you have to see whether they have got presence in those countries. So contrary to, and also a lot of the users now, they're not busy with the decrease in volumes of activities, the BAU activities like the sales and all that. Now you have that undivided attention to do project work, which in the past we were struggling with BAU versus transformation work. So my recommendation to my client, and some of them actually bought it, right, is we do at full speed. This is the perfect time to reskill, to upskill, to train, and to do any kind of back office project, especially with the things that three of us do here, right? Data projects, ERP programs. So if you are into that type of work process system, it's a good time to go offer your service to do documentation, remote, whatever, analytics. So that's my outlook. Is there's actually quite a few projects still going on at full steam, accelerated rate, because it's buyer's market right now. Don't wait, right? Yeah.
That ties in well with what Andy said about be flexible, be willing to accept a job, maybe seemingly doing boring things. I like that point, but then also earn your way up, improve yourself, and do really, really well at whatever the job is. I think just by connecting is one way. I would just add in networking also. Make sure to connect with Nanda, Andy, and Joel during this call or something, private message them, whatever it is, get their contact information or what have you, and ask more questions even. Guys, right, Nanda, Andy, Joel, you all open to them asking you follow-up questions afterwards as well?
Absolutely, go for it.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Oh, good. All right. That's really nice of them to say. So one of the other questions was, in a multicultural environment, and I'm really glad that all of you have worked in different places, different countries, etc. Joel, maybe I'll address this question to you first. Working in a multicultural environment, being Singaporean, you grew up here, you went to school here, but then all of a sudden you ended up in the States or working with people from all around the world as well. What is that like? What transformed you? What did you go through?
Trauma. Can you not tell? Like gone through trauma and back. It's like PTSD every day. No, but to be on the serious side, I think my first job, first project in the US was Nashville, Tennessee. Back in those days, I don't think they have too many Asians running around in certain parts of the US, but I think and then when I moved on and joined GE is known to have offices in all the Hicksville, right? Nashville, Waukesha, Wisconsin, Vermont. So it's not like all your sexy town like San Francisco and LA, right? So culture-wise, it took a little bit of an adjustment. I think the key thing is to really listen and understand and try to break the barrier. But it does take time. And the first thing was people took a long time to understand my accent and how fast I speak. And then but in the US, what I enjoy most about it is that it is truly about your capability rather than your age or what gender you are. And then when I went to Japan and Korea, that was totally different, right? Because you're female, you're Asian, straight away when you work in any organization, even MNCs, they correlate, they look at you as, the geisha house they go to. So there's a lot of cultural adaptation you have to handle, even in this day and age. So my recommendation is to be open and be ready to cry a lot and get acclimatized. I mean, seriously, that's just how it is, right? And I remember my first team when we had an acquisition in Vermont, right? This is Burlington. It took them 1 year to introduce me as the new manager. And just because, GE coming into this small town, buying this company that everybody was so passionate about, IDX, they even named a street after them, right? And it was pretty funny. It was such a small town that there's so many gossip about all these GE executives coming in and just breaking up the company. So it was really bad reputation to start with. And I remember my first day, I met my team. It was like 50 of them, and I'm taking over their manager's job, the manager they have known for 20 years. And I went like, yeah, today is the first day of your, oh yes, my name is Joelle Chu. Everything you heard about me is true. And today is your 90-day plan. So that was a good start to a very interesting and rocky relationship. But no, it wasn't good the way I did that. I had to be sent for sensitivity training after that. So again, be sensitive to the different culture. Understand that not everybody is, direct, vocal, grow up and, they come from different, grow empathy and a sensitivity, gene or whatever you want to call it, which took me a long time to grow one. Yes. I'm quite likable now. No more sensitivity training.
Nanda, do you want to add on to that? Thank you, Joelle.
Well, yes, today's what we call them as the workforce for the future. I mean, that's something that is like we find people from multiple sects. It's a very globalized world today, where there is a seamless exchange of people from multiple countries and sects who come together. So what drives it is, I'll echo Joel is being empathetic about the sensitivities about the cultures. There are some rules of the game for each land, but what drives the most is your personal brand, is your personal knowledge, and how you achieve to solve the problems. I mean, that's what takes precedence than anything else. So it is more capability-driven ways of working rather than being as it used to be earlier of who is exactly there as your boss. So that's a paradigm shift from what it was maybe 10 years ago.
I like what you've highlighted here, Nanda. There is a shift for sure. And Joelle, I liked your experience, especially when you said that you came in there and told them about their 90-day plans that they had to be ready for, just to give context to that. So there's this great book called The First 90 Days, and you have to, again, pick it up, especially if you're going for a new job or something. And what Joel is talking about is you only have 90 days to make an impression, and you better think through what's the current situation. Sense the environment, understand what the environment is, which everyone's talked about. Nanda, Andy, and Joel have all talked about. Get to know what you're going to be able to provide and what you need to learn to provide even better for them as well. I want to encourage everyone. Can you turn on your cameras just so that way we can say hello, and y'all can at least, I know not all of you, most of you have been in anonymous mode for now, but just wave to Andy and Joelle here, at least so they can see that it's not robots or artificial intelligence, but real people here as well. And let me open it up to all of you, please. What questions might you have to the esteemed guest that we have today? And as usual, Babette, I want to thank you for joining us from all the way over in Europe, early time for you as well. So please, what questions do you all have?
Okay, maybe I'll ask you guys then. So what did you guys think about consulting as a job? Did it change after the three of us spoke about it? Is it still as, I know a lot of folks, when I first started out, I thought, wow, consulting, that's all I want to be. And then I very quickly realized, doesn't make the money. Doesn't get you to the $1 million club, that's for sure. It's a lot of long hours. So open up to the floor. Has it changed? Is it pretty much aligned to what you thought consulting is all about? Still gonna full steam forward and try your hands on consulting, or probably do something else? Anybody?
So maybe I want to ask a question about some myths I hear about consulting and see whether they are actually fact or fiction. So usually people say if you join consulting, the working hours are long, you work non-stop, you work on weekends. Are all this true?
Well, it is
Who
true for
wants to take that one? I will say fact. No, that one is. I would say that you know, all of us, you can see from our expressions, have been forged in the caverns of hard work. No, look, it is. Consulting, like many industries, is a relatively demanding industry in terms of the time you put into work. What I will say about consulting across the board is it's cyclical, because we work on project delivery, right? And so it swings between incredibly busy periods, just like semester, when you're approaching a deadline and there's a lot that needs to be done and things are either, you know, on schedule or slightly behind. And then it goes through periods of, you know, of quite quiet as well. So I'd love to say, you know, it's not every night, it's not every weekend, but there will be nights, there will be weekends if you choose this particular field. Guys, your thoughts?
And I think it's aligned to the fact that we're very focused on customer delivery. If you're focused on customer delivery in consulting, it's really just make it work. Deliver. So if you got to work the long hours, it's not all the time, but most of us would say that the thought about not delivering to your customer is the one thing that haunts me and keeps me up awake at night. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure I deliver. So yes, as a result, most of us do work the long hours, and sometimes it's not because we were slacking off early in the week or whatever, but again, you're working with a lot of change, a lot of users who also have their schedule. So it's quite natural that it ended up being us having to carry through the finish line. But the satisfaction, I would say, is we do a lot of great celebration after go live for transformation projects. So we party for like months.
So Ryan, it's fun. Actually, the bottom line is it's not that scary, it's fun. We work hard and party harder. So it's like, you know, we have been all through the journey also are quite hard. At sometimes you have to do a bit of hard work, long hours. It's no different from what you're doing today. But yes, it's quite fun. I can assure you that.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Agree. And I would say it's, you know, it is more work in the junior levels, and it does taper off. So, you know, hold some hope, but we do work hard all the way through. I will also say, to build on Nanda's point there, the relationships that you build.
Another question. I asked career advice from a different prof, not Prof Carter, but someone else, and she told me that if you want to go into consulting, it's better that you do something else already and then come in with the experience rather than start from scratch as a junior consultant, because then you will be like the lowest life form in the company kind of thing. So what are your thoughts about that?
Anyway, you have to start learning. To reach the top, you have to take the first step. It's not about consulting, Ryan. It's anything you do. Yeah. So, well, if you're in consulting, you learn, you get an exposure to the softer skills, you learn exactly what you expect to do, you know, as you grow up. Experience is required. It's a people's business, and people are paying the business, the companies are paying us because as consultants, because they think we are a little different from what they are. So it's no different. So anywhere you go, you start fresh somewhere.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
I have a question. So for all the esteemed guests over here today, do you have any situations where you have to do multiple projects at a time? And if so, how do you cope with both projects?
I call it spinning the plates, which we do day in, day out.
Time management. Very good time management, right?
So it is, as what Joel rightly said. Yes, invariably, Joshua, all of us in this profession, we do manage multiple clients and multiple projects, not just multiple projects, projects which are in different stages. So it's absolutely crucial and essential to ensure that we do not dilute the quality of deliverables of any project. Plus, we manage the time, because all of us have that stipulated amount of time in which we have to give our attention and keep our focus on all those projects. So we do have a planner every day. We jot out, we sequence it, and we have young people like you all who help to manage in our absence, and we just prioritize the projects.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I was wondering, how often do you guys check back with your clients after the project is done, or how do you decide when do you check back with them?
Often would be the answer. And there is no specific set rule when we should go back. In about 3 months time or 6 months time, it's not about it. Specifically in Singapore, it is a very small place, and we get to meet each other after office hours in some conferences and in places as such where we come across the same people. Yes, the key point there, Lawrence, is to maintain the relationship. See, it doesn't take much time to drop a WhatsApp message, to say hello, to drop by, have a cup of coffee. So it's not about the interim period or the time between which you see them. It's about to ensure that you maintain the relationship with the clients.
Yeah, and echoing that, don't go to your clients only when you want to have a job. So you, same thing as you keep tabs, right? You check in post live one, even within the week, to check on how things are, whether they're adjusting fine. Like what Nanda says, all about relationship, right? You don't, yeah. And if you have spent at least, most projects is at least 12 to 18 months, if not longer, you would have gotten to know something personal about them, their birthdays or whatever. And these days, LinkedIn, they update you for every, things that happen in everybody's lives. So build and invest in the relationship, not just on the transaction. I think that's important.
Other questions while people are thinking? I'll add one. Or Andy, were you just about to say something? Do you want us to share, Andy? Can you guys hear me? Okay.
I think he's muted. Or
Here, Andy. Let's see. Hello, and no, we can't hear you. Oh no, I was going to ask you the next question. What do you think about the future of consulting after COVID-19? So companies, banks right now where you're not supposed to go outside. Yes, the branches are open, but people weren't going to the bank branches in the first place. Now there's even more reason not to go, especially to provide. Joel, we're very familiar with this, right? The wet ink signature that some of our clients have. When will they finally stop using the pen to sign every deal and get to digital? So right now the pen and paper is almost, it could be a death sentence, right? You touch it and you get infected. Imagine that a year from now, the situation has calmed down. Most businesses have probably moved some direction. But what about consulting? What would change about it? You know, Ryan asked the question, do you spend a lot of time working? Also, one of the consulting myths is that we love to fly, and that's why we fly everywhere. Now we're grounded, right? Consultants can't fly, and yet we still have to, as you mentioned, you know, connect with them, go out, build a relationship, become a trusted advisor, but you can't meet them in person. And maybe next year, when things begin to come back, what's the priority? What happens to consulting? Does it change, or do we go right back into Million Mile Club and all the different things that we have for consulting? Andy, I still can't hear you. So, Andy, you want to go?
Can you hear me now? Is that any better?
Yeah.
Hey, sound. Okay, let's see if this works. So look, it's a great question. This period for us all is so interesting. I mean, obviously, as we're talking about, there's an economic climate we've got to manage, but this is a forced experiment in an entirely different way to do business that none of us was anticipating. And for those who've been working for a long time, you know, trying to work remotely, trying to work virtually, well, it's always been possible, has always been met with a degree of resistance, you know, from clients, from people within organizations, etc. And now that it's been forced, not just on some of us, but on all of us globally, it provides this kind of very different working environment that Nanda was kind of speaking to before. So there is a big view that things will never quite return to how they were before. That people will come adjusted to these kind of these situations, and they'll become more. It will reduce the face-to-face time needed. However, it's also rapidly changing expectations of customers. And I find in my clients and things as well, you have people saying, okay, well, we need to focus even more on our digital side. We need to focus even more on our data side. We need to focus even more on our tech side, because we're realizing that we're not effectively communicating with our customers when we lose these kind of brick and mortar relationships that we have. And so we're getting this kind of huge demand for things that I think organizations have always thought about, but are now realizing are kind of imperative to their survival. So it's a very interesting kind of change.
So a pandemic outbreak of this magnitude has caught companies and the whole industry off guard, and with a shock wave of ripple effect tearing through typically from the areas from supply chain and business. Now, consulting would stay. The things that would change would be the focus on specific aspects of consulting. For example, these days, the first and foremost thing that is establishing a real-time intelligence supply chain intelligence monitoring system. So what does that mean is we rely heavily on the data analytics to tell us what is the current health of the supply chain. There would be immense amount of focus on how the transaction happens, the omni-channels, the e-transactions. So the way business used to operate would be more changed in the new ways of working. So yes, the consultant might not fly places as they used to do. It will be more using of the Zoom and the Teams and all new technology advanced solutions. And the focus of consulting and the treatment from a consulting aspect would undergo a little bit of change is what I'd say.
Yeah, and I think consulting, like you said, is still needed, but how we engage clients, I mean, this COVID thing is definitely throwing a wrench. I think depending on how mature and advanced your clients are, this whole remote over Zoom works, but as Keith and I have experienced, out of sight, out of mind, it's impossible to get hold of our clients in some countries. And I think while technology is great, there's always still this need to, you can probably cut all these travels and all that by a portion, but I think the face in-person engagement is still necessary for some clients in some countries. Is remember, you set up a meeting, it's very focused, right? And sometimes some of these sensing that we do is in the hallway, in the elevator, is the chit chat that happens. And I think this whole it can never be replaced by technology. That in-person engagement, and I think all the more I would say that after this whole COVID thing, I would definitely lobby for more, and I will continue to lobby for like in person, because that's how you hone your sensibility and awareness skills. Too much Zoom makes you, it just reduces your sensitivity and awareness. I think it makes you more robot, right? You stop being aware of things that go around you. All we have to do is look at screen. I'm anti. Yes, I'm a technology person, but I'm anti too much technology. I don't like that. I don't like too much Zoom. I like to engage my client. I like to go out with them in the evening for a drink and get them drunk and tell me all the secrets now. Tell me. Why did that CEO get fired? So things like that. And that's what consulting is about too, right? It's holistic, it's not just, you got to understand to get the whole picture. There's investment of a lot of your time, not just in solving problems, but to understand the culture, the people, the players. And if you're talking about moving up, right, Nanda? I'm sure you do a lot of evening, right, Andy? So yeah, if you're just low-level consultants, go in and keep the wheels running, sure. But if you get to a level whereby you got to do BD to meet your NSR, darn, you work 24/7. Right? Client engagements, I'm telling the truth. Am I not, Keith?
You're absolutely right.
How do I, every time we go Hanoi, how do I plan your calendar? Lunch, dinner, drinks. After drinks. That's milkshake for you. That's just how it is. That's how you close deals. So let's just be honest about it. What? It's just like RFPs? No.
And I think you don't separate your work from your home life. When you're in consulting, you have to bring them together and say, I'm enjoying this type of work so much that I'm willing to, go to the client and then work, but then go, as Joelle says, go and have dinner, then have drinks, then meet again for some supper, whatever it is, to keep the connection while you're there on the
phone. Yeah. You gotta it's got to be something you really love and enjoy. I mean, I'll be honest. I love consulting. It's like my hobby. I don't stop. I'm like 24/7. I text Keith at 4 a.m. I text my client at 2 a.m. and they respond. So it's not for everyone, but you got to really, it's fun. For me, it's really fun, right? It's like that challenge of solving, when everybody else say no, your clients are down and out and just like dying. And here you come, keep them going, focus, get it done, result. And then you celebrate, you throw some chairs and then you celebrate. And then the cycle. So that is type of consulting work, right? It's project-based. Then there's this whole maintenance, I used to be an accountant, preparing to close the book report, preparing to close. Now that's not my kind of job.
We have another question from the YouTube live stream. So in your personal experience, what would you do when the client, or rather, let's see, what will you do when the consultant needs to handle multiple projects and complex projects, but your technical knowledge isn't enough to fill the gap between what you know and what the clients require? Plus, you have to have the customer's deadline. This is the classic scenario where the business development team oversold the project, overpromised on the date, and now you're on the delivery team. So what do you do?
You learn. And if you don't have the time to learn, you ask for help. And all of us at all levels seek out help. And nobody expects to be an expert in all things. And invariably, we'll land up in a situation where there are areas where we are not the expert. So what we do is we reach out for help to the right expertise wherever it is available to help us sort out the problem. So, and to close the gap between the sales and the delivery, what a normal practice we follow is to embed the delivery people within the BD team so that there is a seamless transition from the sales phase to the delivery phase, and the client sees a continuity of what was promised during the sales is delivered as part of the delivery. So those are the specific activities that we do generally when we land up in such a situation.
And I think that's where relationship, network, and building your tribe is very important. That is day one. When you get out of that university, you start building your circle, your community of practice, we would call it, but your tribe. People, because the people that you're going to get help from, especially technical, may not come from your own team, your own company. It can be from outside. And like Nanda said, you learn. And how do you learn? You learn from your friends, your community, your tribe, And again, every project is unlikely that you're the lone person there, right? And always surround yourself with good, talented people. And give. When you give, it comes back to you. And that's where the tribe will stand up for you as well. When I guess for me at least, I think I've been very blessed and fortunate that I've always got people that I can reach out to and get knowledge, and they share generously. And the same goes, anybody ask, I will always offer knowledge. Don't hold back. The more you give, the more you receive, and at moments when you need it most. Yeah. And this goes for consulting and non-consulting job. Yeah.
Hey everyone, so Andy has to hop off to go see another client now. And I think what I'd like to do is, if there aren't any other questions, why don't we just wave goodbye to Andy and everyone. And also I'd love to get this is our last big class, final class here. So everyone could put on your pictures and what have you, and at least we can get a quick class picture here on Zoom. That would be great too. Kerwin, if you have to fix your hair, go ahead and do that. I need to make sure my hair is in place too. So let's all get our cameras on and for our last formal class. And then 2 weeks from now, of course, we're going to meet up for the final presentations, and I'll give some details about that. Everyone coming on here. Anthony, let's see, who else is there? Nora, you can wave to Babette over in Europe as well. She's not as far from you. Okay, so it looks like we have everyone who's going to put their camera on. We won't push it, so let's wave. Thank you so much, Nanda and Joelle and Andy. This has been great, guys, for joining with us. Everyone on YouTube, thanks a lot for joining us as well. I've heard from Andy and Nanda and Joelle. They're happy to connect with you on LinkedIn and what have you as well. So please go ahead and ask them if you have questions. And don't worry, I've taken a screenshot already. So we've got our picture here. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today as well. So if there's nothing else here, we will wrap up for today. And Nanda, Joelle, any last, Andy, I know you have to hop off, but maybe I'll let Nanda and Joelle have a last word to summarize their points. And Andy, if you want to get a 30
I will.
seconds, you have a moment. Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate it, and good luck with everything. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Nanda, you want to have a last last summary here, and Joel after that.
First of all, would like to thank you all for having me in this. And I would like to wish you all the very best in the future endeavors. And if I could be of any help to you at any point of time, I think I've got a couple of LinkedIn connects, so I will accept that. You can reach out to me there. And Singapore is a small place. Can meet sometime at an appropriate place, and all the best.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I will reiterate, build relationships. It goes a long way. And act with integrity all the time. Care about your clients, okay? Good luck.
And Joel, when you have your wine bar open, we can come visit it.
Oh yes, talk about transformation. Like 3 weeks ago, I bought a wine bar. Oh my God, I'm washing toilets now. And serving, but it's very fun. The first thing I did was look at data. It's amazing how you make data as a, you can apply it everywhere you do. So that's the first thing I did. I looked at data, look at my P&L and balance sheet, and start making improvements. It's fun. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Take
you
care.
all.
Bye.
And
Bye.
great having you all in class. Take care. Bye-bye.
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 Thanks, Prof. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Prof. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.